Whoa,
Doing, Rico?
very good. How are you?
Good, good. Long time.
How's everybody?
Pretty good.
Staying warm. How's that snow apocalypse in Seattle? Did you
It's
survive?
crazy. It's it's we have I don't think we've ever had this much snow. This is the house I grew up in, and I think we have 16 inches. We went cross country skiing this morning out of the garage, and
Oh my gosh.
the city of Seattle is flipping out. Everyone's posting pictures of like empty grocery shelves.
Yeah. Is transportation like and just getting around the city very difficult right now then, I imagine?
I don't know. I don't have to do it.
I have some friends in Seattle too, and they're just like the same thing. It's like the end of the world, Walking Dead. You're like, I'm just gonna go to the grocery store, and it's just like a panic. It
Well,
runs.
it's like hey, Brendan, it's like not even I don't know. Like it seems like it shouldn't be a big deal because other places get snow, but the thing is, we hover right around freezing, and so it melts, and then it gets a little bit of rain on it, and then it refreezes, and then we just have sheets of ice. And like just walking around yesterday, I almost fell down a whole bunch of times.
That's
So
scary stuff.
everybody still gets to make fun of Seattle for not handling snow, but
Well, if they're not used to it, I mean,
yeah,
there's no infrastructure or people just aren't like, it is a problem.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And we're expecting Michelle, right?
Yeah. And I think
Didn't we get
Dawn,
news? Is Dawn coming?
she responded to the poll.
Cool.
Did people have a chance to look at the agenda? Do things make sense? Anything to add to the agenda or anything that?
Kevin, do we maybe want to start check in, or do you want to give another couple?
Yeah, I think we can. Yeah. Um, so I guess does I think everybody knows everybody, right? Right now. Anybody not know somebody? Okay. So we can skip intros, but I was thinking we could do a settling in. This is kind of a thing that we picked up from some of the horizontal org stuff, and just a way to like not start a meeting with meeting updates and like just getting to know each other as people a little bit at the beginning. And it's just a simple question. It was just like, what was the last show, video, or talk that you watched that you found really interesting? Because there's been a couple of terrible things that have been on TV lately. Hi, Michelle. We're just doing a kind of a settling in introduction. And I was just explaining, just kind of like a icebreaker. I guess I hate those terms, but but the question was, what was the last show, video, or talk that you watched that you found interesting? Because there's been a couple of terrible things on TV lately, like the Super Bowl halftime show or the State of the Union and stuff like that. And so, if there's something else that people have seen lately that's just really cool, it'd be cool just to share. I can start. So was feeling really sick on Tuesday, and ended up just binge watching 3 episodes of Blue Planet 2 on Netflix. And if people haven't seen that yet, it's really amazing. I think it's awesome. Uh, and then I'll go around and pick people. You can pass if you want to too. So no pressure. So Rico, Kelsey, Brandon.
Oh, I'm going to temporarily pass so I can actually think about it and have something valuable. But I will. I'm happy to answer the question. I just got to think. I don't want to have a crappy answer.
I had a day where I was kind of like, I should do something this evening, and I looked up a whole bunch of different events on Facebook. I had like 10 tabs, and one of them was the Sunrise Movement is having an annual State of the Union viewing party of what the Sunrise Movement of the New Deal are about, and I guess I'm involved with them now. It was really cool. It was two of the organizers who were like, I mean, one of them was in the boardroom and one of them was in his parents' house. And the whole thing about the Sunrise Movement is that it's very youth-led. Oh yeah, Matt, sorry. The prompt is we're just doing a check-in with everybody, and this is what's an interesting video, talk, or show that you've watched. Anyway, they had two of them and also Naomi Klein, and it was just like a really tightly produced is not quite the right way of saying it, but like very high production value for like an hour of just watching people talk about what's going on with that. Anyway, I'm excited. Green New Deal.
Yeah, I guess I'm next. Hi, everybody. And my fun thing that I just watched is going to be totally off the wall. I actually emailed this to Matt Price. I'm going to paste the YouTube link into Slack. As many of you know, Matt knows how to surf when it's so cold that you shouldn't be surfing. And I found a YouTube video called Weird Waves, and where they go and surf in, near Wisconsin. Yeah, it's but it's super cold and it's super pretty though. And so Great Lakes surfing, which is like not a thing. And it just made my day to be able to have somebody to think about while seeing a video about Great Lakes surfing.
That's awesome. I see Rob, Eric, and Michelle next.
I guess I was just finished actually the other night watching Homecoming, which is a series on Amazon, which is like really, really good, which I hadn't realized until partway through is based off of a podcast, and I can't even imagine how you would listen to the podcast and have it make sense because it jumps around in time and it seems like it'd be absurdly confusing, but it's really well done in video. And it's super short. It's like 10 half-hour episodes. Super interesting.
So I am actually in the midst of watching 6 Feet Under, which is not a recent show, but I missed it the first time around. And yeah, it's a nice time machine back to the early 2000s. One line from the episode I watched last night was something to the effect of, "So that MapQuest site is pretty neat, huh?" And yeah, it makes you appreciate how far we've come, I guess. Anyway.
Michelle, you're next, and then I think Rico has an answer now.
Okay. I don't think there's another Michelle, so it must be me. I'm along the same lines as Brendan with silly YouTube videos. My friend said that I like strange animals. That's a strange Australian animal bird that makes these craziness. You can look at it later, but it's what the, okay.
I'm going to bend the rules a little bit and go with a combination of podcasts and Netflix shows. But if you watch both of the Fire Festival documentaries and the Dropout podcast about Theranos, I've just got like fraud on the mind. And so those are some really good treatments of just how to identify it, the behaviors of a crazy cult leader. I just found all that stuff fascinating and kind of fitting a theme about a lot of present day exciting opportunities that don't follow through on their promises. So I love that kind of stuff.
Michelle, if you're interested, we did a report on the sage grouse, and you should look up the sage grouse and its mating.
That one's very cool too. I agree.
And I was just watching the Fire Festival thing last night, Rico. It's really interesting. It's a good lesson in project management gone wrong. Okay, and then finally, Matt P and Don, and Matt Z if he wants to speak.
Remember how this works? There's not a mute button.
Sorry, I'm muted in like 7 different places.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I watched a couple of good things recently when I in no way had time to, but the one I will mention is I was seeing a friend who I hadn't seen in a while, and we try to hang out weekly, and had failed. And so we we're gonna meet up late because she was switching to night, like she had switched on to night shifts, and we're like, okay, we'll just start watching The Square. Has anyone seen this movie? It's like a dark satirical comedy about the modern art world. It's by the guy who made Force Majeure, the director. And we were like, okay, we're gonna check in 1 hour in, and then we'll like call it a night. And we both looked at each other like 30 minutes after we started watching, and we were like, we have to finish this. It's so good. So many like spot on, kind of like, but also extremely uncomfortable moments. And it's set, I think, in Sweden. And so like the like sort of subtlety of like office politics or like a lot of like cultural mores in Sweden are kind of like really like played with. It's really good, but so uncomfortable.
I had a similar binge moment where Michelle went away, and when she goes away, sometimes I just don't go to sleep, and so I stayed up watching Russian Dolls, and I kind of like miscalculated. First, I thought the episodes were shorter than they were, and I also thought there were fewer episodes than there were. And I just kept watching, and I really liked it. But actually, the kind of slightly cooler and less trendy thing that I did recently was listen to Slow Burn, the season about Monica Lewinsky or about Bill Clinton. That was wild. And what was it about that? You know, I was in my early 20s, is that true? Or mid 20s during that period. And it was interesting to like compare my memories of that time and my prejudices of the time with things I was hearing. I don't know. It felt like I had a little bit of reflection to do afterwards.
Did they mention Alta Vista search engine or something?
No.
And Matt Zed, I don't know if you're going to be able to talk.
Yep. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'm not going to risk turning on my video, but I'm sitting in a lovely park in the south of Mexico City, surrounded by cypress trees.
Oh.
It's really nice here. And my connection is working. So I also watched Russian Doll, but immediately before that, completely coincidentally, a group of my friends were like, let's watch Groundhog Day. So, so I had just watched Groundhog Day, which I totally recommend rewatching it if you haven't seen it in a decade or so. And then turned around and a couple days later was watching Russian Doll, which has resonant things to it, but almost explicitly sort of says, you might think this is going to be a rehash of Groundhog Day, but it's not at all. And it sort of like offers it and takes it away. Yeah, they were both enjoyable.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks everyone, and welcome to the Data Together first quarter 2019 coordinating call. Ding, 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 ding. I'm going to pass it on to Kelsey. Take it away.
Yeah. So if you saw my email a couple days ago, it had, or however long ago that was, it had a couple of points in it on what we would be covering today. And it was essentially, A, let's start the reading group because we all definitely want to do that. And B, let's think about stuff, what other stuff we want to do or be, and in 2019. And we had talked about OKRs and something we've been working on. But my bias at this very moment, and you're welcome to have different ones, but my bias right now is let's focus on just being and less on doing as this group, because it seems like a pretty full time for most people. So I'll be curious to get all of your thoughts on that. Is there anyone who wanted to make sure anything else got discussed today? Don? And then Kevin.
I mean, that all sounds fine. I am definitely one of the people who has a really busy life right now. But I think some conclusion on whether or not writing is going to happen might be a good thing to actually just revisit.
And then just in the interest of time, I know I put partner updates in there, and I don't know if we want to do that really, really quickly, but I just also know people talk a lot. So
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, would we be for short partner updates at the beginning, or would we like to leave that at the end, or how are people feeling about that? Okay, let's put that off a little bit so that you can think about it and have something solid to say. In the meanwhile, oh, Brendan, is your hand up?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think moving them to the end would be a nice change of pace. We'll give it a shot. Maybe we can do it later.
Cool. Kevin did a really excellent job of dropping links into the agenda. So if we need any supporting links or information at any point, it appears to all be there. Here's the agenda in the chat if everyone doesn't already have it open. So I'm wondering if anyone has a particular take on what needs doing before we get that reading group going. Because as I recall, we had several themes, several ideas for who would facilitate, and probably a collection of readings. My impression is that we still need to choose down the list of themes. Is that correct? And then pick who goes with what. Yeah, Dawn?
I think we actually prioritized the themes, so probably we just cut down 5 from the top, and then we have like the ones that we want to do. Or at least I think how we discussed was that the first one we might kick off every cycle with, because it's a what is decentralization, and then kind of like had put on the top half the ones that people were most excited about. People have also signed up for some of them, but asked to have someone support them. So I think it's a little bit more like scheduling and confirming that there are enough interested supporters and someone who can help do some of the like admin, like kind of overarching support.
We need the repo.
Brendan, was that a hand?
Yeah, I think that sort of feels right to me. I think that this cutting 5 down from the top means that we would just basically drop trust and maybe prep that in case there's a 6-week, but like why we don't ever do more than what we can do. So is this list that I'm seeing in the agenda prioritized according to the original prioritization? Do I have that right?
if in the previous planning, there was like 13 things, and this was the stuff that people brought to the top and said they might actually want to live on. That's what I said.
Sorry, yeah, I was just saying that's my understanding too.
Perfect. So with that, then I think we should start moving to like figuring out what administration support needs to happen, and then try and get people assigned to topics.
I'll just say I, am Dawn too, heading to India on Friday, and so like the next couple of weeks, slow, even perhaps more absent than I've been in the last couple recent. But when I come back, I'll just do whatever you guys assign me to. Any of these things look like things I can kind of manage. I'm not more incompetent in any of these things than my average lecture topic on a Tuesday or Thursday. So if you want me to just throw me at something, I can do it.
I can add. I'm happy to co-facilitate on one of the ones that someone asked. Like, I feel like I could talk a little bit about the fitting alternatives into capitalist structures one, or like I've done some reading around that from an academic angle. And Kelsey, I think you had wanted a co-facilitator. So I could do that, or I could be on another one. I feel maybe I've read a bunch about the feminist like theories of care, so I could probably help with the stewardship one. But similar timeline to Matt, and yeah, I think it would be cool if it were co-facilitating, but I'm also happy to do it alone if needed, but would prefer working with one of y'all.
I could jump in for the commons.
That was Eric, right? And then Michelle, you have your hand.
What was the civics one? I don't remember. Civics of what sort?
It's sort of quite philosophical. From the notes we have Plato's Republic selection, digital civics, Paul Frazie's information on blog post on information civics, and then civic versus citizen versus community.
I had originally suggested it. It was because we use civics in our mission statement. We use the term civics. And so I suggested we should read up on the topic so we have a rich understanding of the term.
Got it, thanks. Oops, I think we cannot hear you.
I've read a bunch on digital civics or people talking about civic in design spaces, so kind of not totally unrelated. I'd be happy if when you're collecting readings to just share a few of those, but kind of not like leave it to you to coordinate if that's what you're thinking.
Who is that directed to? Matt or me?
Oh, whoever tackles.
Whoever tackles
that one. Got it. It sounds like I don't have the background and maybe what folks were thinking about on that one. Although I mean, if it overlaps at all with, civic tech sort of design, how to design things for broadly service design, civic sort of things. I know a lot about that, but it sounds like that doesn't cover the entire topic area.
So just in case you're not following along on the doc, I've been adding names to the current agenda that we're in next to the different topics, and anything in parentheses is a maybe. Yeah, Brendan?
I can jump in on knowledge comments with Eric.
There is, so Matt said, I have you on what is decentralization, and that's per your comments. Are you still into that?
I could do that one. I could do any of these. So I'm sort of more excited about all the other ones. I should probably do the decentralization one.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of interesting. I also feel that way, like, what is decentralization may be the central question in some ways, but it doesn't feel like totally gripping as a conversation topic. And I almost wonder if it would make more sense at the end of the session too, like at the end of the semestery thing that we're talking about, because I don't know, maybe we'd have something interesting to say.
I can problematize the shit out of decentralization for you if you like. We can really go the other direction on this.
Yeah, that might be a cool angle. I mean, a reminder of everyone that one we came out of, that was the first entry in the first round of the reading group. And we came out of that sort of, many of us saying, we should do this exact same topic again. And maybe even repeat some of the readings. That it was just like, there's a lot there. It was our first installment, so we were still kind of figuring out the reading group. And so that was why it ended up back on the list. But I like the idea of taking more of the like problematizing angle.
Rob?
I also like the idea of doing it last. Actually, I think that's a really, like, it allows everybody to put it in the context of all the things we've been talking about, which I think is super valuable.
Cool. So I can own it. That makes it more interesting for me.
I do think there's a potential tension here of, I think we made this list of stuff that we all agree that we'd like to be talking about and be knowledgeable on, but we don't necessarily have, at least distributed among us, backgrounds to cover the stuff that we're interested in learning about. Does that seem to be accurate?
I think as a group, we would be able to come up with good readings, but it's like any individual of us probably has gaps.
We're just looking at some of the suggestions we have in here. Some of them seem a little bit far-fetched.
Mostly Plato's Republic. I was thinking, like, I always make us talk about Aristotle's politics. So I was like, why didn't I suggest that?
Yeah, I think these are all going to be super fun to talk about, and I feel like when I flip back and forth between the documents, my brain is broken because I somehow am not seeing them all as the same, but surely they are. I'll have fun with all those, and I can totally help out with anything.
I feel the same.
With the time that you have.
I'm going to magically become really, my schedule's going to empty out completely as I fly back from India a week from Monday. No, but that's really true. I really believe it.
Matt has his hand up.
I was gonna, well, a suggestion. We already had that one call where we generated this list, which was really fruitful. Should we do that again? Have just for the people who are facilitating or interested in helping come up with suggestions for the reading list, just do another installment of that, like getting together and mutually picking our brains about what readings to put in each section and how to prepare for them.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I'm seeing a lot of waving fingers around here.
I think that would also make for a nice sort of soft, you need to have some thoughts in place deadline of like, here, have a bare minimum, set of 2 or 3 things you think would be a good reading list. And then ideally people can climb onto that. And that way we have something to work against. So if we schedule a meeting around that, maybe it's not mandatory, I don't know, but it might help for those of us who need something to intersperse your deadlines.
Oh, Don, you have your hand up?
Yeah, does that kind of maybe bring us nicely into the conversation on timing? Because to Matt's point, I'm in a similar position. I would be happy to participate, but not until March. And I can drop a sync thought somewhere if that's helpful. What we did last year was have a GitHub issue per topic. We can use Google Doc, like however it gets coordinated. I think it just needs someone to kind of do that shepherding. Wondering, our original thought was we might mirror the academic calendar. So we were thinking we could have done January through May and then take a break over the summer and start up again. But kind of given where we're at in the semester schedule, I'm wondering what people are thinking for timing of a reading group. If we have 5 or 6 topics, that's kind of what we worked with last year, and we did it over the summer.
Yeah, Rob?
I think we'd be optimistic if we thought we were going to get started at the beginning of March anyway. So that March timeframe seems fine, and I feel like mid-March would be like lovely and ideal. And I obviously don't care at all about the academic calendar, so whenever we do it is good for me.
Kevin?
I'll say, yeah, end of March or April sounds cool because there's 5 or 6 readings and we'll end in October before like holidays, and that's when like nothing will happen. But we were able to like have the reading group over the summer, right? Last time. So it worked.
I mean, just not that I should be a block, but my sense is that I'll probably be less available this summer. That's not an issue.
Yeah, Brendan?
So what about starting first week in April? Seeing thumbs, seeing good things. Okay, lots of good things.
Do we have a time, just like a day anymore for that? Should we
I
feel
think.
like-
Oh, go ahead, Brendan.
I don't think we do. I feel like we should pop open some sort of poll issue and just say, hey, this is what we're thinking, and maybe start with last year's time as a tentative, just so that there's something people can flex against.
Yeah, and that's something I can do after this call is follow up with you all with a when is good. Does anyone want to posit a here's what we need before we can start? So one of the things is picking the times that we meet. What else is there?
I think we should have things set for at least the first two topics so that people can get started on the readings. Because that was, I think, an issue for some people last time was late notice on some of them.
Depending on what you mean by starting, if that planning session where we collectively pick our brains to choose readings, I don't know if that's before we start a requirement or if we say that is step one of starting.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we should probably sometime before April be able to have that meeting. But
Agreed.
I guess we do want a month of lead time on whatever the first week of April thing is, which I'm assuming. I was thinking of it as the first meeting of the reading group to discuss something. And Rob, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think just to maybe make that more concrete, we should have met and discussed and figured out what the readings are for the first two topics by March 1st.
I'm also seeing, so on the list, I'm seeing civics has, Dawn can help find readings, but I don't think she's intending to be a leader of it. We don't have any other names next to that. I also wanted to go down the list. Looks like Knowledge Commons is covered. Alternatives to capitalist structures. I think Dawn and I can cover that. And stewardship, Dawn and Michelle kind of, it looks like. And then decentralization is the two Matts. How do we feel about that allocation of people?
I probably can't do 3. So if there's a way that I can be swapped out of 1 or 2, that would be preferable.
Looks like the civics one is a bit of a sticking point, huh?
Yeah, I don't think it should. I guess Dawn's going to be away 2 solid weeks in Ty when she gets back. 2.5.
Yeah, I get back later in March.
So, why don't we just move that one down a couple? And do you want me to try to take it over, Don?
Yeah, or like I have a set of readings in mind that I can just dump somewhere, like, but I would be happy not to facilitate.
Okay. Why don't I try to take that in, but can we move Knowledge Commons first and Civics second? And that way I'll be alive by the time it's happening, and I'll try to pick Don's brain or otherwise figure out what makes sense there.
One other thing I'd recommend is if we're having trouble with civics, maybe it's something that we want to lay some groundwork on and think about as an extra topic, but swap that out for trust, which sounded like had more concrete, less nebulous stuff to it. I don't know, I'd consider that as an option for the people constructing the civics one. Also, like Eric, I don't know about you being put on the spot. I'm happy to go first too, because then we can get it out of the way, and we'll make sure that we'll hit that earlier deadline. It'll be great. We're gonna do awesome.
Yep, works for me.
So it's been rearranged a little bit in the notes. Is everybody able to see? Matt Z, would it be helpful if I read it out again?
I see the notes in the Google Doc.
Oh, cool. Okay. And Don, you're okay with? Yeah, go ahead.
I just think separate from this idea of setting the first 2 readings, which is great early, it would be good to also set the dates or like have a sense of when you have the full schedule. So I know you wanted to maybe re-poll for a time, but it might be nice to kind of like map that arc at the beginning. And
yeah,
then,
I absolutely agree. Actually, how did you all find dates across several months for all of you last time? Because I'm trying to figure out what the correct tech tool is for that. It sounds super hard. Yeah, Dawn.
we used 2 different polls. It was really obnoxious. We did like the when to meet to find the time of day, but which wound up being the exact same as when our meetings were. So honestly, I think you could just do that to get a general like sense for data together for the next while. And then we did a different, much leaner than Doodle poll for dates. And we knew we were going to miss some people.
Okay, yeah, I can start that process, and I would hope to just pick all the dates at the beginning so that we all can plan around them.
Can I, oh, sorry. One thing too, which might be, this is perhaps presumptuous, but also there's a lot of conferences and events kind of between now to end of October that fit in with all of this stuff. As someone who is planning one, I know this. And so it might be nice to think about potential, that was a big piece of that conversation last year, was seeing about people's conflicting schedules. And I don't know if you all are thinking or hoping about doing a data together thing together at one of those events. It's a lot of together. But maybe that's a cool thing, and maybe you could somehow rig an in-person one. Is that exciting? I think that sounds cool. I think they're camping at DWeb this year. You could go camping in July somewhere. Or come to Toronto in September.
Well, this does tie a little bit to something that's not on the agenda, which is next year's, don't we have an annual meeting? And I think that Edgy is intended to not host this one, is the impression I've gotten. But if y'all wanted to do that at a conference or can join to a conference, that seems like a cool thing.
I think this means work queries back up. So we'll just rent a boardroom in Boston. We can all become there again. That'd be great.
In the middle of winter, right?
Yeah. No, but seriously, yeah, we'll throw. I don't want to take up too much time on this call, but yeah, the idea of running something in New York would be super fun. So if anyone's interested, great. Cool. We'll try and put something together.
Yeah, maybe there's a query event we could co-locate with.
We're running data jams. We could totally run a data jam around one of our thingies.
So I'll send out the polls for the main days for the reading group discussion sessions. And I guess I'll also send one out for, we wanted to have like an hour long sort of co-work on finding readings. Is that right? And I'll look at how we can do that over the next couple of weeks so that we can have it before the beginning of March. Is there anything else we wanted to discuss about the reading group, or do we feel like we're all set up?
I was gonna ask, are y'all still planning on using Zotero to collect the readings? Because you could use that asynchronously in the meantime too. I think Dawn has separated it by the topics from last reading group, so you could begin doing that same categorization.
Yeah, I sent out a round of invites, and like Kevin said, I did organize the last round into folders, but if you just think there's a general reading that might be of interest, you can just add it to the main Zotero group. And I think all of you should be able to invite other people. I tried to make as many people managers, but so yeah. My understanding was we had no strong objections to any of the tools that were used last time, but also no strong love. So maybe this is a good test to see if it sticks.
Kevin, was that a suggestion to not meet before March?
No, just as a way, because March is 2 weeks away, so it's a suggestion just to help get work done before that happens.
Cool, that sounds great.
Yeah, I guess to echo that, I mean, people probably still need to meet, but I think we could probably get 90% of that work done, have things laid out, and just have people in a virtual room say yes, 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 no, quickly if we do more work in advance asynchronously.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this sounds like a really good start. And I will send out those planning things today. If we're ready to move on to the next topic, I was wondering if perhaps this would be the good moment to discuss whether we plan to write anything. And previously we had talked about co-writing something about the reading group. Another thing that's tied into this concept is whether we want our reading group to exist just for us or whether we want to try and expand it, which I think is also tied to the do we want to expand data together conversation. Does anyone have thoughts in this sphere, want to focus down on the idea of writing, or want to go broader and talk about the intent of the audience of these reading groups, whether it's just us or whether it would be better as something that is more public? Brendan and then Rob.
Yeah, just looking at the 4 priorities for the year, I'm seeing a couple of other opportunities where writing maybe isn't the stated goal, but is very much a sort of component of getting those things done. I'm seeing a pretty website that tells me of the world what Data Together does. That sounds a lot like writing, and needs to be sort of clarified and thought through and maybe worked up. Just agreeing on our values and vision is another collaborative writing sort of session that will need to sort of happen. And then let's make a case or document for why a civic layer on our values are needed. Sounds like writing. And so maybe just agreeing to do the 4 things that we said we would do as year-long priorities might be actually enough to, and this is kind of not a joke, but actually enough to provide a pretty firm basis for some collective writing. I don't know if we need to bite off more, But yeah, I don't know, just a suggestion.
Rob, did you want to go?
I guess maybe I don't have too much to add to that. I was just going to say to the point about expanding. I think one thing we talked about with the reading group before was that there's probably a limit on how big it can get before it becomes like tough to manage. At the same time, like we definitely had some regular participants who don't show up, as far as I'm aware, to other Data Together things, and I think that was great. So I don't know, I guess I feel like we should try and be welcoming or word of mouth to other people, but I don't know if like advertising it sort of at this point makes sense.
Yeah, Matt.
I mean, I think there's an advantage to having the same group of people there, so we have a conversation. So it's not like an event that you just drop in as much. And I think the size that we had was pretty good. Double that size, it would be harder to feel like you were participating, I think. It might be not so much fun. It'd be like sitting in a webinar or something. So I think it was pretty good the way it is.
Great. Well, that's simpler. It sounds like consensus on that is my understanding. Okay. Well, that's cool. That makes it easier. And then on the discussion of specifically writing, I think, Michelle, you had originally brought up a want for having a co-writing session. And I think that the idea was to spread the way Edgy does it to your org. Does that sound right?
Yep, exactly. But I don't know if folks have time. I think Edgy shared some of their process documentation, and it was just a matter of, does anyone else have more insight on that, or is there more, if we talk through those different processes, that I could get written down and processized? If not, then I can take the documentation that was already shared and go from there.
Well, as Brendan points out, it sounds like we all have some co-writing to do together regardless. And perhaps our next thing to do is we have another 45 minutes in this call, right? Do we want to approach the OKRs for 2019 through the co-writing process and see if we can just test that out here? A lot of not moving faces. All right. Yes, Dawn.
That sounds good. And I said this sort of in jest before, but I don't think it has to be decided today, but I actually would want to surface if people think a deadline might help with the co-writing, and if a deadline could actually be tied to thinking about a place that you would want to take a conversation that's grown out of the reading group. Like, is there a way that we would want to be like, hey, we've been doing this reading group for 2 years or 1.5 years, and it's allowed us to think a lot about this topic at an event? Like, I don't know. Just wondering if how I set accountability deadlines. It's usually that I've over-applied to do things, and I'm like, but I go and do them. And maybe that's a model that might work here. When I kind of have the sense that many of you kind of like circulate in some events already anyway.
Eric?
I would echo that. I think that's really great. I would maybe try to extend it to say that on our current docket, we have civics, right? We put that in May. One of our priorities is making a case for why a civic layer or values are needed. Just going off the word civic, it sounds like there's a connection there. So maybe, we could think about using that reading group discussion to then launch a related co-writing session that would at some point in the summer, churn out that document.
Yeah, Brendan?
Yeah, I think that ties in really nicely with the like goal of getting a better website up. If we try and get the website into a place where writing will go here, and then it's ideally that would create some incentive for someone to actually write something and have it appear there. And so I'd love to sort of like try and front load the efforts to take some of the website mockups that have already kind of been, and the wireframes that have sort of been worked out generally, and see if we can throw some time into that. And ideally have that one, I'd love to sort of help get that moving in one direction, and then ideally that it would help motivate some writing.
Yeah, Michelle?
That might be fine, although I want to say in general, I never advocate for doing wireframes in design before we have the content, because usually that follows the content. And we'll probably find that once we write the stuff, we don't have the right design and we'll need to redo it. But if there's some sort of like, oh, we need to tear this whole thing down and rewrite it in XYZ other thing because it's not maintainable right now. I mean, that we need to do anyways, but I don't know if that's one of the things that's on our mind.
Oh, shoot, I'm not muted. Eric, you were talking about the, so I'm looking at the OKRs, and we have the values and vision. There's a case or document for why a civic layer, and then there's the pretty website that says what Data Together does, etc. When you were talking about rating, were you talking about the document that defines the civic layer, or were you talking about the website? Because I think Brendan was then talking about the website.
Yeah, I was talking about the document, but you know, the next step could then be, you know, okay, we've written this document. How then do we fit it in with the other parts that need to go onto the website? And yeah, that's the content that we design around, I guess. Yeah, we can think of ways to fit them together in the schedule.
I think this means I get to advocate for procrastination. I completely agree with Megahertz's point that designing around content that already exists means we can add graphic embellishments if at all possible, or at least images that are evocative of the writing. So yeah, I'd vote for somebody go do the writing first, and then we'll make a website. And
I'd be curious to hear, has this group done like productive of content work together before? Do you have existing processes for that?
I mean, I guess we made all that material for the event that we ran, and then we planned an event and ran it and did the same for like a sprint. So that's probably the examples of the processes that we currently have. But I think the general flow is like high level coordination at a coordinating call, and then kind of having other calls sort of spur off work or kind of be a recap at a period of that, and then sort of assigning out tasks that were mostly managed on GitHub loosely.
I think it'd be fun to do like a sprint, like a doc sprint of some kind. That was enjoyable. The time that we did it, was that Edgy or Data Together when we did that?
I think we've done it too.
Okay, but I mean that would be kind of a cool way to make ourselves meet a deadline in the spring when there's no surf.
Are we seeing the, so if you look at the section that says 4 priorities for the year, I guess values and vision says Q1 2019, and the website saying how can I get involved also says Q1 2019, which Kevin, that's drawn from the OKR's document draft. Is that right?
Yeah, it was just from the notes. I just copied what was there. I wasn't imposing that deadline on anybody.
I guess I'm trying to figure out how to frame the discussion around asking you all how it is we want to do work, and what kind of deadlines we do want to set for ourselves, with the bias that my ideal at this point would be to see what work we can do while still on this call, because we have this time reserved. Does anyone have a good suggestion for that? Do we want to launch into a more direct, like, these are our OKRs for the year, revision, discussion, and decision?
Can I say that maybe we should just try and work out what the next 2 quarters are instead of the year? Because my thinking is if we try to plan the year, it'll be like, cool, we're gonna do all these things, and it's February, and we'll wake up and it'll be November, and things will be done. So maybe if we just say hey, what do we want to get done by Q2, end of Q2? So we know for sure we want to have had at least 2 reading groups. Is there anything else we want to commit to in that time? I don't know. I just feel like it'd be a smaller, more feasible conversation that would have a little more gravity to it.
Yeah, I think that's good. I also, I'm having a hard time having a conversation that doesn't push towards having concrete things, but I do, somebody was talking to me recently about the idea of data together existing as effectively holding a space. And I thought that was a really cool way of framing this. And I don't think we necessarily need to be doing more. And I think having the reading group is actually a really good way of continuing to exist and have good conversations without obligating ourselves to stuff. So I guess what I mean by that is it would be a success, as far as I can tell, if we did nothing except have the reading group and continue to exist for the next year. But I'm really curious how other people are feeling about that.
Apologies, I'll step back in a second, but yeah, I completely agree. The only thing I would add is I think that we should try and make sure that the space that we're holding is known to others. So if they want to find us, it's at least a little bit more doable, so that we're not seen as a closed entity. Hi, Matt, what's going on? So yeah, and like you said, I don't think we should lose sleep if we don't get it done, but I think it's important to at least try to update our web presence a little bit. And that's what I'm thinking of specifically, even if it's just a small, it's just a tiny 1-page tidy up of this is what we're doing. Here's our plan for the year. We still exist. We're still working. And if you want to get in touch with us, here are channels that may function. I think that would be a nice small goal. I completely agree with you though, Kelsey. Just want to sort of take that to make sure that others can join us if they're seeking us out.
Dawn?
Yeah, I would echo that. I feel like even if we say we just want to hold space, there is some onus on us, I think, demarcating that space a little better, or signaling that it's out there for other people who we might want to come find it. And so to kind of your earlier question about deadlines and thinking about the arc of it, I think it's fine to talk about, 2 quarters as a horizon to set some deadlines. I would say using this time here together to do that makes sense. Because it seems like there's a pretty good way to imagine the reading group coordinating coming together, and there's a couple moving pieces before that, and there's sort of a plan in place for where that coordinating will happen next. I would say this idea of a doc sprint might actually be better put to something like that tidying work that Brendan talked about, or like website work, because I think we've tried a few other strategies and it's been a little tricky. But honestly, all of the things that are on the annual goals are like very modest and I think pretty important to achieve over the course of a year.
I'm sorry, I missed the last thing that Don was saying. What was the question you were posing? Or that Don is posing?
Don, what was the question you're posing?
It wasn't a question. I was just saying, I think when I look on those OKRs, like I think that's a goal to get done by the end of this year. So yeah, like I'm happy to work on it now, and I feel like I would focus on that, which I think was what you proposed, Kelsey, just because the reading group stuff seems like it has a flow in place to kind of take the next coordinating steps on. And then I suggested the doc sprint idea that Matt mentioned is maybe better suited for the one specific clean up our public face goal that we had for the year. Like that feels like that is approachable in a sprint format and might be okay if there isn't action on it otherwise.
For my edification, Matt, can you explain the mechanics of a docs sprint?
Well, what we did last time was we had like what I think that Don wrote a whole bunch of issues actually to start with, of things that we needed to fix. Oh, I did too? Okay. And I did too. And then we like just reserved this time when we were all together. Brendan, you were there too, right? And Enrico, maybe?
No, we did it across 3 cities. People in Boston were there too.
Yeah. And then we just kind of like hit the issues. They were mostly, some of the things were mechanical and sometimes there were conceptual problems that had to be solved. And we just tried to like hammer it. And we did it in 2 days or a day and a half or something. So that, and it was just a way to reserve time to do the work. That was the main thing. Because otherwise, I know for me, stuff goes to the bottom of the pile all the time.
Yeah, Michelle, it looks like you have some good stuff that you're putting in the notes on the side. Do you want to just say that out loud?
Yeah, sure. My brain is slow today. I've had trouble tracking which doc we're talking about where, but in any case, regard to the website stuff, to get that going, we can just throw either the existing content into a Google Doc, or if you all think that that's not even worth kind of inserting into our brains first, keep it blank. And the first thing we can do is just align on what messages we want to get across, what are the things that we think that's missing right now in that whatever inclusive face we want to present. And then after that, then go into, okay, who's going to write the content for each of these? And some of you might have ideas on where some snippets are that already meet those once we define them. But yeah, we can definitely do that asynchronously, or drop in, or find a time to do it together. But I suppose as a thing, oh, there's a thing there. Mocked up new text. Okay, there's some text somewhere. Cool.
Yeah.
Just recentering on the process because I was literally in motion for the last 15 minutes. So I think it was that we were discussing text website related stuff as a co-writing thing, not now, right? And then but that now we will work on OKRs. Was that, if you could clarify for me, because I only partially followed the discussion.
Yes, I think you're right, and I am having such trouble moderating this discussion because I'm a little lost in what our goals are because I've been around for 2 calls now. So I think that would be great. Let's go into the OKRs, and there's a doc where we're doing that, right? Alternately, we could. Yeah, let's look at those OKRs. I will find that.
There's definitely a doc. I will need to dig for it if someone doesn't already have it.
It's great background music in Mexico.
Oh, sorry.
It's really good though. Regards to the OKR discussion though, Kelsey, you also brought up, I don't know if this is what you meant by what you were talking about earlier, but do we need OKRs this year? I think was maybe where you were going with that, in the sense that this year we've got kind of a short list of things we want to do and definitely want to do them. They're pretty straightforward. It's like update the website, do the reading group, or maybe it's the most important part of doing OKRs, coming up with a metric. So we say, we did this because of X, Y, Z. I don't know. I don't remember. And actually, I think the impetus to get OKRs was pre-me. It was a while back. So anyone who was here that decided that we should do that, if you still want to do it, let me know. Or you think that would be valuable?
On that one, Michelle, it was in Toronto. We defined some possible objectives for the year, and I gave an example of like, here's how they could be expressed as OKRs, and it was like just simply using that term OKR to distinguish between things that are qualitative objectives versus KRs, which are things that are like measurable goals or measurable things that you could complete. It was just that nudge in the direction of the notion of OKRs. And there's an example. That's where I'm trying to figure out, oh, okay, here's that OKR doc, Kelsey, I had access denied.
Me too.
What folder do we all have together? I have one called Data Together that it's in.
Yeah, there's one called Data Together, and then inside that one is Data Together non-public and Data Together public.
Oh, sorry. It looks like it's in Edgy Shared somehow. I will find.
But does anyone remember where is the document where we captured the outputs from Toronto? I have the one called Data Together Mission and Vision, but it doesn't. Clearly, we worked on it in Toronto, but.
Let me look.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that might have been the origin of the list that made it into today's planning doc. Like those things didn't come out of thin air. We definitely.
Yeah.
Try that link now. I put it in the non-public Data Together.
Okay. Yep, it's open for me now.
Yep, same here. This permissions thing is going to be totally easier on the distributed web, right? Peer-to-peer? Easy?
Yeah, it's easy. Just upload your key pair to this thing and
fine.
Lose it, or else $200 million of cryptocurrency is gone. Yeah, it's cool.
Or you just have to, disappear in India, maybe.
Womp womp.
Okay, I have a proposal for this, is that we take the next, until whatever hour you're at, 14, and do as many comments and propose suggestions on this as you would like, and then we will come back to discuss it.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. And thank you for finding the doc.
All right, we passed around a lot of links. Which document are we doing the suggestions on now? The original, the one that you just successfully gave us access to?
That is correct. Okay, it is now hour and 14 minutes. Um, does anyone need more time? Okay. How are people feeling about these OKRs in general? Do they look achievable? Yeah, Matt Z.
I didn't comment much because I reread them trying to apply a critical eye, and I just feel really positive about them. Like, they're things I can say a thumbs up to. So my lack of comment is not disinterest or disagreement.
Yeah, I took the instructions slightly differently, and I just wrote like, this is what my plan would. What I tried to write was more like, if we were going to do this, how would we do it?
Is there more we want to do on this right now, or is it just useful to check in on it? Brendan?
I think it's useful to check in on. Personally, I think we've got a lot of agreement on this is like a baseline set of goals. We can give this a shot. But to me, it seemed that there's a few things jumped out as like potential blocks in other projects. Seems like we need to. Thing that jumped out at me was coming to some sort of conclusion about what's happening with the Data Together GitHub organization and the website publication workflows. Were two like things that are going to require decisions that should be made sometime soon. Soon being measured in quarters.
Yeah, so part of our earlier discussion was around having content for the website around what a civic layer is. Do we want to make that discussion about civic layer something that blocks work on website, or do we want to work on website sooner than that? Michelle and then Matt P.
Yeah, kind of what Matt said. I think there's plenty we can do without having that fully articulated. There's lots of basic stuff I could think we could knock out.
Matt, you're muted.
I think we can write, say, and show stuff without having finished the intellectual work of, knowing the answers to everything. So, yeah, and that should be probably our general principle, is that we have an intuition that the civic layer of the web is important. And it's not just an intuition. We also see other people with the same ideas, and there are like clearly like kind of obvious things that are important about that. And we haven't finished like articulating the best way to think about that. So we could do those in parallel.
In that case, what is the way that we'd like to work on the website? And I think Michelle had a really good listing of how you would go about doing a website update. I have the impression from these calls that it's easiest for us all to do work when we have specific time set aside, ideally synchronously. Would it be helpful if I schedule an hour and a half of co-work for us in March or April to start that process? I will do that. Do we want to do something similar with actually, Brendan, can you tell me a little bit, I think it was you who was talking about the GitHub repos, about what it entails to update that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we're blocked on is just making a decision on our software side and like what we want to do in terms of road mapping. Once we have that, I think we should go through and update the readmes and archive things are no longer supported, and make sure that we're actually just like clean. To me, that's cleanup. And I wrote it into the doc that I'd be happy to commit to, like, once we get some direction, like just take 4 repos off the shelf every month and clean them up, get them into a good spot. And I'll just sort of like pick through that list, because a lot of that is legacy work that I was leading. And so I'd be happy to collaborate with somebody on that. But to me, the biggest thing I just want to do is make sure that we make a clear decision on that first so that we all have consensus.
Okay. It sounds like we're in a good position to be full up on data together work for the next like couple of months. So I think we can call it on the productive session. Can we go into partner updates? It looks like we have about 3 minutes per. And Brendan, did you want to start?
Yeah, if you guys don't mind, just mainly because we've been chatting a little bit today about, actually, Kelsey, you and I have been chatting about coming back to archiving, and like we have a blog post that we're coming out with about how we've been working on Query for about a year and a bit to be the tool we wish we had at Data Rescue. I'm going to share my screen real quick, and this I'm not going to update you on anything else. I'm just going to tell you about this one little bit. How do I do this? There we go. Hopefully you currently see this, which says failed to fetch on it. Okay, cool. So yeah, like this is Query running some archiving update stuff. So like this is the thing I really wish we had when we started building a whole bunch of archives. It has a transform script built into it. It helps to have my backend turned on. Sorry, one sec. Don't look behind the hood. Okay. Now we're on the DWeb. Cool. Most importantly, so like this is actually a proper archive of the history of this EPA's data.json record, which I can't wait to dig in on later on because as it turns out, the last time I archived this, it went from 49 megabytes. It was 49 megs in the latest version, or in the like version from 2018 that I built a while ago. And now it's, oh shoot, I've changed profiles. Sorry. I'll show it to you on the regular internet. Apologies. This is what it looks like. So the big thing that we finished at Query is publishing to 2 internets. And so now you can do, I'll paste this link in the chat. But you can basically go to like, once you run Query publish, we run a pinning service and it's now here. And you can take this exact same thing and then hit ipfs.io and you can see that same data as on the distributed web. And so we have it in 2 places and it has lots of provenance. So you can actually like see the history of the data set and understand where it came from and what it was made with. And that's in this case, like, hopefully, yeah, if I actually, yeah, this one won't have history, but we actually stored the schemas and inline the actual code that was used to create the data set. So like there is actual provenance here. There is an actual record of how this was made. And you can see that this came from this exact website. And that nobody can mess with those bytes in the interim, and you can see who made it and when, and that's signed with a key pair, and it's on the distributed web. And then if you run Query publish, it's also on the regular internet. That's my update, and so I'm very excited to like actually grind through some real data.
That's super great. Also, we should talk about. So sorry, I'm just jumping in here because Matt and I just did a workshop at ESA, Earth Science Information Partners. Matt, we should see if Brendan can help us with the workshop at the summer one, because this is along the lines of what a lot of people would be interested in, I think. Yep. We'll catch up, Brendan, but I have some outputs from that around what people were confused about and everything. And I think showing how you solve some of those problems would help people really understand how DWeb could be used effectively.
Amaze. Sounds like this update was useful.
Do y'all want to roll into the protocol update?
Sure. Let's see. Also, Matt, you can go off mute and interrupt me at any time. What is important? Well, Matt and I are working on a repeatable workshop to use at places like Earth Science Information Partners meetings. We're going to run another version of it next week at Code for Lib. It's part, and I guess, Matt, in the future, we might officially separate it into 2 chunks that could be run either one or both. That is to say, we realized that to get information about what people might want or how people might use the DWeb in the future, you have to do an educational piece first. So our challenge was, how do you design a workshop to get people thinking about how they might apply this technology in their day-to-day when it's such a new field that most people know anything about it, and you have to have this kind of base level of understanding to even engage enough to say, oh yeah, that's immediately useful for this right here. So there's an intro part that takes, I don't remember how long, that Matt is spectacular at, and says these are all the things, and then a workshop bit where people can write down opportunities and some confusion areas and potential problems they see, and do the sticky note thing, make posters in small groups, present it back to the groups, have discussion, that sort of thing. And it went pretty well at the first one. Matt,
and we're doing it at like the workshop, the information gathering workshop in a bunch of places, but the DWeb primer as its own separate workshop, and then the information gathering will trial for the first time at DPLA Fest in Chicago in April.
So that's exciting.
So is it reproducible in the sense that other people will be able to lead it, you think? Or so the way like kind of software carpentry is a set of tools for volunteers to do, or is it really just for you guys to be able to do it over and over again?
I think with any workshop, if you have baseline skills in running workshops, you could look at this and understand how to do it. Probably the more challenging side, and Matt might agree, is to do a DWeb primer, you have to be able to do a DWeb primer. I mean, we have the slides there, but part of the value, for example, is having, originally it was like, oh, should Matt and me go to ESIP, or should one of us go? And in the end, it's like, well, Matt did need to be there because there's so many questions into the specifics of DWeb stuff. It was so great to have him there. So having the combo of me who could facilitate, I mean, not that Matt couldn't facilitate, but having the two folks, and then Matt able to focus on answering any questions and leading more technical discussions. And then I can run around, doing the Post-it thing and making sure people are understanding what the process is like and all that. It worked really well. Some repeatable in that sense, but you probably need some sort of specialist background to be able to run it.
And the DWeb primer, I'm using the workshop as to put pressure on myself to create the repeatable kind of self-guided learning materials that I want to exist, and I know I could exist if I just do it. So using exactly Don's strategy of propose doing it at a conference, get accepted, and then you have to prepare. Other updates. So there's the work on Cube we are still pretty optimistic is going to proceed. It's hit some bumps in terms of whether it will get the team allocated, and that would be a run your own IPFS pinning service that is aimed at you don't have to ever look at a command line in order to run it. So you can just download a thing and run a pinning service for yourself and your kids on there, and you can do whatever, and it sort of becomes this baseline for all sorts of sort of digital stewardship activities, sort of different variants of using that same capacity in different contexts. So we're still optimistic about that proceeding, but the first round of work on that would be UI research, UX research, and we have not yet hired the UX research person. So it's coming slowly. I also am currently at PASIG, Preservation and Archiving Special Interest Group, where I went to a workshop on locks, which was interesting. Lots of copies keep stuff safe. I learned a bunch, so I'd love to share thoughts from that, but not on this call. And then I also spent a few days meeting with Nicolas Pace from Altermundi and the LibreRouter project, and he's cycling around the globe helping people deploy their own community-based intranets, and he is now like one of his many projects is creating a repository, a decentralized repository for cultural knowledge that they're calling El Repollo, which is a play on words because repollo means cabbage, and elrepo.io, and so he's like he and the people he's collaborating with in that work might be good people to kind of invite into the data together stuff. So yeah, I think that's most of. Oh, and well, yeah, that's most of my updates.
And does anyone want to speak to Edgy, what we've been doing since last coordinating call?
And probably somebody who's been doing something should say something.
I can try. We had our annual meeting, the Edgy annual meeting, a couple weeks ago in Toronto, which was really nice. Came out of it with a lot of good energy and a lot of ideas, but we'll see how good we can follow through on that. A couple events are happening. There's an EDJ like webinar discussion happening at the end of the month, and it's the panelists are looking really interesting. We have speakers from the Detroit Digital Justice Coalition, and there's some indigenous group digital justice, as a couple of digital justice groups, and then some actual like environmental justice groups. So really cool. I can send a link to that registration to Data Together group. Kelsey and I are also planning a workshop with the Science to Action Committee in April. And so if you guys share any of your workshop stuff, that'd be cool. We can steal from you guys. Anything else, Kelsey? Those are like the two things that just popped, or the things that popped in my mind.
Yeah, we've been kind of on a internal organization and taking care of ourselves and each other kick. So when we have these kinds of meetings, it feels like we didn't really do much, but I feel like we did a lot of stuff we needed to do. I was gonna say, I don't remember. Anyway, you get the picture. We're working on basically ways of decentralized organizing for ourselves. And we haven't been doing a lot on decentralized data structures lately, other than hopefully providing a forum for you all to talk. I think we are right at time. Kevin, do you have like a lightning closing circle idea?
Sure. I was gonna say, what far future idea are people super interested in excited about? I could start. My example is plasma gasification, which is turning garbage into just elements. So just destroying it instead of burning it. That would be crazy.
I have one. It's universal basic income. Okay, I'm done.
I see Rico, Brendan, Rob.
I'm just going to reach out to something I read like 5 years ago about a train system I think they were thinking of in China, where you can get on a certain car that's designated for a certain stop. And so this train, just like when it comes to the stop, picks up your car and goes, and then you hang out on the train or whatever for a couple hours or whatever, and then you get back onto a car that's going to be left off at a city. And so the train actually never has to stop in motion. It's just like when it comes to a stop, it lets your car go. And I wonder where the status of that project is, because I always think about that. That's it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which makes it much more efficient, right? Because it doesn't have to accelerate or decelerate. Interesting.
I'm excited about homomorphic encryption. Anybody heard about this stuff? This stuff is so cool. Microsoft open sourced this thing. We think they're like morons, but like, well, not morons. I think they're like the evil empire. But this is like a super expensive technology, and it means that you have a way to say, you keep something encrypted, but I want you to do something to that information and give me proof that you did that thing to that information without me ever seeing that information. It's like, as like a policy thing, it could be used to solve all of the problems of like subpoenaing encrypted data. Like it could actually change the way that we work, like the way the government interacts with the encryption nightmare and the way that Australia just broke everything. I'm super excited about it. That's my thing.
Cool. Rob? Is Rob frozen? Oh.
I don't have anything.
Michelle, Matt, Don. Matt P.
I mostly got excited about animal stuff. I already shared that one. There's what else have I learned lately about strange animals around the world? Nothing's coming off my head, but there's already this. Have you seen those super cute quokkas on an island in Australia? The world's smiliest, cutest animal.
Cute.
Yeah, they're really, really cute. So if you haven't seen those, I'll drop a link. You should definitely look it up. Mm-hmm.
Matt P, Don, and Matt Z. Close it out.
Oh man, I don't really have anything. But now that after you said that, Michelle, what really was so awesome at the end of last year was this paper published by a grad student in the Maritimes who went for a walk and picked up some dirt and discovered like whole new kingdoms of life that are further apart from anything that we know than like fungus and mammals are from each other. So that was cool.
Whoa.
I said when you first said this question that I'm excited for sleep. I don't know if I have a good answer right now.
That's perfect. That's it. What's that?
So I've been rekindling an enthusiasm for a technology that previously played a big role in my life and will play a bigger role, which is the Tibetan traditional 3-year retreat, which is designed as the, I heard it referenced by one person who's done 2 retreats as that it was designed to be the most efficient, the minimum possible time in which you could become enlightened. Like you've optimized all your time. But a more practical way that I heard it explained was by a friend, a Lama, who did retreat. And she said basically in everyday life, if you're a meditator, in everyday life, you spend all of your energy doing all the stuff of life. And then if you manage to carve out some time, then you meditate. Where a 3-year retreat, you flip that script. And every single, like all of your time of every day for over 3 years is just, you're going to meditate. And then if you manage to fit in all the other stuff, eating, sleeping, bathing, walking around outside, then you like make it fit. And so what it's doing is you're just maximizing your focus on like working with your mind, settling your mind, and working with that. And yeah, I'm increasingly excited.
Are you going to
about that
sleep in a box?
Yes, but describing it as a box is misleading. When I finally saw one, I was like, oh,
What?
that makes so much sense.
Sitting up in a box.
What?
Imagine you're not in a box like you're in a cardboard box that you could close over yourself. It's like, imagine if you had a box that only has its back wall, and then the other 3 sides are only like that high, and the front has like a little place to put a text so you can read. So it's like a desk chair that you can sit and meditate in. And it's a meditation box. They're very comfortable.
I hope you find alignment in that box. Okay, well, that is the conclusion of our coordinating call. Thank you, everybody, so much. Great seeing everybody's faces. And have a great day.
Bye, everyone. Good to see y'all.
Bye, everyone.
Good to see everybody.